Hey guys, Nick here from D&D Character Creations, and today we're going to be looking at build number 2. So we did some bonus content, and I'm going to do a little bit of some bonus content maybe later, but for right now we're going to get into our second build, and we're going to kind of swap things around a bit. To start, we're going to look at character creation in terms of the role play that we want to start with as opposed to the mechanics. So a lot of people, they build to certain statistics. They want to get to certain breakpoints. They're looking at spells or attacks or feats. But in this one, we want to look at what do we start with in terms of the narrative of our character. And because for some people, that's where they want to start. I think we see that a lot with like episodes of Critical Role, or we look into design of, say, like some Dimension 20 stuff. There's a lot more like character build in some of those than there are mechanics. So I thought that a good topic of character creation would be loss. Losses for a character, it's a defining feature. How they get over their loss, that is part of their journey. And so we'll start with the normal trope of loss of parents, right? Like, so what's the origin story would be, someone who loses their parents. They are left alone to survive, kind of by making friends or by, cobbling together what they can. And when we have someone who is sort of left on their own, there's a tendency to kind of want to go to the rogue feature, like a street urchin. But for this character, I don't want to go down that road. So there are other archetypes of children who go through or survive these types of losses where they find other means of employment, of getting coin. And so if we think about this character, okay, so they're lost, they're alone, they're finding other people, they're surviving by learning their way around, and a lot of that can be about like a kid who knows the streets and can be a guide, right? So someone who knows the alleyways, knows the best way to get from A to B, kind of knows the local merchants and everything like that. So a guide is sort of where we're going to go. And, we'll look at maybe like, that's all our background would be a guide. And so we'll say it's got to be a bustling place that they're currently in, where they're probably have been taken in by maybe an innkeeper or a merchant. Maybe they, work, part-time in a shop. But again, they're like, what's the loss? Like, are they trying to find, like, did their parents actually die, or did they go on a journey and now they're trying to get coin to like follow them in that journey? What does that mean for them to be abandoned? I think the other thing is when you're building these types of character, there is also, you want to go somewhere, right? So if we've lost a family, we always look to our D&D group as the family that we found, the family that we've chosen, as opposed to the family that we have. And I think that journey of how we feel about our party, we get connected with our party, that helps us through loss. And I feel like that's a good story. And again, it happens a lot in these types of role play scenarios, but just because it's happened before, how it plays out at a table can be totally different. Nothing is written, but it is good. Just like we have a guideline for our character in terms of this is the profession, this is the subclass, and it has milestones. It's okay to have ideas on the milestones for your character, but then you change them as you go. Maybe just like you might start as a fighter and then you might multi-class later on. You can change the direction of your character based on events. Maybe instead of losing and coping, you go down another path. And so when we talk about how we're going to express these feelings and emotions, I want a character build that allows us to manifest that. So when we talk about like look at things like animation, like Japanese animation, there is this like when the main character gets upset, there's a release of ki, or there that emotion has very strong emotion can interact with the environment. And so I wanted to look at a character whose grief or loss or their emotions have impact around them. And again, as we did with build 1, we're reskinning things, right? Like in build 1, we said for a Psy Warrior, if you didn't watch it, go back and watch it now, spoiler alert, but we kind of took the Psy Warrior and we said it's about willpower. And for this build, we're gonna reskin it and be like, it is about the emotion of the character. Their emotion has impact on the environment, same as we did in the first one, where the will of that person to bend the environment to them is how their subclass works. And I feel like this build really does that well. So we want we know what our central idea is around loss. We know who we've lost. So where can we now best place this character for that? We know that we want a class that's going to allow us to emote and interact with players and environments. So for this build, we are going to start with Druid. So we're going to get into the build now. So with Druid, and we talked about the guide. So what we want to do is, I'm just going to go over here and we're going to look at the build. So again, with all of our builds, we're only going to go to level 12. With all of our builds, we're only going to use standard array. And I liked Druid because we are a guide. We know the area around us. We can take people here and there, and the Druid really works well for that because they're people who know nature, as opposed to religion. They're focused on the environment, right? So we're going to start at level 1. We're going to start as Druid, and then I took guide. We did stealth and insight. I liked stealth because again, you are alone. You've got to make your way around the town, the city, wherever you are. Stealth is great. Insight into how people react to you is great because, again, wisdom is going to be our primary focus here. I took magic initiate as our feat. I did produce flame, starry wisp, fairy fire. These are all kind of like some good utility. Starry wisp is great because it's radiant damage. Produce flame has fire. So we're looking at different elemental spells. We're gonna do with I increased all 3: Dex, Constitution, Wisdom. They're just great for a Druid for where we're at. I picked Orc, and I feel like there's a lot of different races that we could choose this build, but I liked Orc for a couple of reasons. Number one, I like this adrenaline rush where you can use the dash as a bonus action to like get away. Like they're running away, or they're running to, or they got to get somewhere real fast. You being able to dash and then dash again felt really thematic. And also this relentless endurance. When you drop to 0 hit points, you can kind of pop back up at 1. Because I feel like a person who's experienced loss, they're emotional, and maybe their emotions might take them in a place where it might be dangerous. And so you're kind of like, if things get a little crazy, if things kind of get emotional, if you're kind of in a situation where maybe you made some bad choices, relentless endurance kind of helps save you from yourself, I feel like. And that's and again, we don't want to again, we're not min-maxing here, but we are trying to help solve some problems. So let's take a look at, let's make me smaller here. All right, and then for ability swords, we're going to start with an 8 in strength, 14 dexterity, 13 to con. So again, we get an additional con from our merit. We're going to be at 15 starting because of our choices. 10 intelligence, 15 wisdom, which is going to bump us up to a 16 to start with, 12 charisma. Because I feel like the charisma, if you're kind of a guide, you know, you're chatting with people, and we all know, if we've been to, you know, anywhere, like guides are typically, you know, chatting with people. So I felt putting the charisma there was, instead of intelligence, was really good. We're going to go to our standard, you know, items to start. So that's level 1. And then as we go into level 2, you know, we're going to get our primal order. I said magician. This gives us the ability to use our intelligence. In addition, your mystical nature allows you a bonus to your intelligence, arcana checks, using your wisdom modifier. So again, we're a wisdom-based druid character, or druid. So now we can use our modifier for arcana and nature nature checks. You know, so that's great. And then elementalism is a nice little kind of thematic thing where we can use interact with the elements. We get wild shape. We can use wild companion, which means using find familiar in place of our wild shape. But at level 3, we're going to get our subclass, which is Circle of the Sea. So why Circle of the Sea? And this is why. As a bonus action, we can expend a use of our wild shape to manifest a 5-foot emanation from us. Now, it says it takes the ocean spray, but it basically does cold damage and allows us to push people away from us. And I really wanted that sense of, so when we talk about loss or grief or whatever, like, and I was talking about that idea of like in anime, when someone really kind of expresses something and they shout and something happens. And this is a bonus action where you're letting that grief kind of out. So Wrath of the Sea, I would almost be like Loss's Lament is how I might skin that. And you can use this in a bunch of different ways, right? You're using a bonus action, and it can be like, what if you like, your character's feeling really upset about something, bonus action, boom. And you know, it may hurt it could hurt your friends, there's stuff like that, like it pushes people away. But I feel like that's the theme, right? Is that sometimes when we are hurt and we have experienced loss, we kind of also shut down the doors, we push people away. And this is like a physical manifestation of that emotion. All right, so again, on this channel, we're really tying the mechanics to the role play. We're giving you ideas on how you can reskin things to be more emotive, or you know, give you some ways to kind of change things for your role play. And this is where I really wanted to look at that idea of how we can change something to be not just an element, but more of an emotion. So Loss's Lament is what I would call this, and it would be, you know, your loss comes out as a physical manifestation. And so we could also tie this to a sea-based campaign. So we could say that the city that you're at is a oceanside city. We could say then that your parents may have gone on a voyage and not come back. So now they're not dead, they could be lost. And then back to that idea of what are you saving your money for? Maybe you're saving your money up to go find them again, right? Like that's been the whole plan, is to get on a boat and see them. So you can tie all this kind of together. Your emotion, your backstory, it all fits into this build idea. So, we updated our, for level 5, or level 4, when we go to ability score, I chose Speedy, which is again kind of like going based on that. We're running around. Your speed increases by 10 feet. So now, we're doing 45 feet of movement, so we can get over there. Difficult terrain. When you take the dash action, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement. This ties into when you use the dash action as a bonus action. So now when you use your orcish features as a bonus action to dash, you don't need to worry about difficult terrain. So like difficult terrain kind of just doesn't matter. And then opportunity attacks have disadvantage against you. And so now we can move in and out of combat swiftly to help our friends or to escape or whatever. So again, when we're talking about emotion, we're talking about somebody who it might be someone who is, is very has a lot of emotion onto what they want. They're moving around. They might, maybe they're angry, maybe they're sad. Like having the additional movement can be thematic to your character, but also a benefit. So again, that's why we're talking here in this channel about like how we can kind of like have that comprehensive view of how does it fit into your role play. And this is maybe someone who's slightly erratic, and then this is kind of like tying into that. At level 5, we get Wild Resurgence. You can restore your wild shape with a spell slot. Aquatic Affinity. It increases your Wrath of the Seas, which again you might say is Loss's Lament. It's stronger now. In addition, you get a Swim Seed, which is really nice. You get your Elemental Fury at level 7, which is now you can add your Wisdom modifier to your cantrips, your Druid cantrips. At 8, we get ability score. I chose Observant and a bump to Wisdom because, I feel like here's a person that probably went to the edge of the docks and was looking out every night. It's my parents coming back. They're always looking. They've always been searching. They've always been aware of everything because they're looking for that person. And so Observant, which allows you to kind of like, you can get expertise with something that you already have. So I chose proficiency with perception, but you could have done like, if you had perception already, you could do expertise with it. And it allows us to do quick search as a bonus action, so we're quickly running through. So a lot of things with this character, even though this character isn't like a rogue, they're really fast. They rummage through things real fast. They can use, like I said, they can use their wisdom modifier for arcana and nature checks where they normally would use intelligence, or they're really good at kind of doing the things they need to do. So, and then at level 10, we've got they get your wild shape now gives you the sea. Wrath of the Sea gives you fly speed, and you have resistance to cold, lightning, and thunder. And then our last ability score is Warcaster. I chose Wisdom again. Warcasters is great because at level 7 we can add our Wisdom modifier to cantrips. That means now that like we could do, we could take an attack roll with a spell. And now it has a bonus damage based on our wisdom. So it just felt like now we can kind of be in the fray a little bit more and doing a little bit damage with our cantrips. So that was our 12. So let's look at the character sheet itself. So at level 12, we ended at 8, 16, 14, 10, 18 wisdom, 12 charisma. So pretty decent stats. We have a staff. We've got, Ray of Frost, and that +4 is because it's our wisdom bonus. Thorn Whip, again, the wisdom bonus. We have Starry Wisp, no wisdom bonus because that was what we chose at level 1, and it's more of a feature as opposed to a druid cantrip. We've got Shillelagh can do now D12 +8 because it's doubling our casting modifier because of that bonus that we got. We're emanating, we're pushing people back, so it's a DC 16 con save to push people back, and they're taking 46 cold damage. So that's pretty sizable. We're probably not using the wild shape a little bit, but we could. And again, if we're as a druid, most people start at like level 3 or 2. We were changing into like a cat to run around, or some other type of animal to do messages. Maybe we were also a messenger. And so let's go back to features. We have our speed is 40 because of speedy. We've got insight, nature, perception, stealth, survival, all are pretty good at 12. Again, we don't use magic items here on the channel. Obviously, anything is going to make that better. And I'm not going to go over spells because spells is kind of like choose your own adventure too much. But, we've got a good array of fire and cold and radiant and some piercing. We've got some good spells here. Cure wounds, hold person, thunder wave, fog cloud, really sea-based stuff. If we're going to lean into that, like our character's been on the ocean. So again, when we talk about these types of things, I feel like this character really, if you wanted to lean into the emotion, I feel like that bonus action where we push people away is really the cornerstone of this build. And I hope that when you talk about or you look over these types of ideas in the future, that you're coming to it with both the role play and the mechanics in mind. And that's like, there's lots of channels out there that will look at just the mechanics and say the role play is up to you. And I always feel like there are some people that just need a little support and ideas, examples, and that's really what we're trying to do here on this channel. So I hope that some of these ideas in regards to how you can incorporate your emotion into the traits that you pick up, I hope it really fits with you. So this character, I named her Gerra Longtooth. So this was Gerra Longtooth. She was at she lived on a port city. Her parents were travelers, explorers. They went off, they left her with a friend of the family, and they never came back. And so she spent her childhood living in the streets as a guide, as a messenger, running around, doing what she could, saving up her money so that she could go and find her parents. And that loss, as part of her druidic nature, her loss manifests itself in this wrath of the sea. And her abilities all tie back to this idea that she is someone who really is someone who worries about people leaving her, can be emotional, is really there like to get out of situations. She's had to get out of difficult situations because she's been on her own all the time. So her abilities really help her get out of those tight circumstances. And I feel like hopefully that she will eventually find her family or find the family in her party, and maybe then uses that tie of loss that gets replaced with a commitment to her party and an attachment to the sea, because the sea is wild, right? And so her druidic nature finds an inner peace when she overcomes that loss, and that tie to the ocean through her party allows her to empower herself even more. And and these are all story hooks that you can add into your own character. And I hope that this session helps you. And so, as always, I hope that you enjoyed today's VOD. Get out there and get creative. I'm Nick. See you later.